2008 Mercedes Ml350 power steering rack and pinion replacement. I'm Brian Esselt from How To Automotive, and I'm going to walk you through the steps of replacing. One of the first things I'm going to do is remove the power steering cap from the reservoir and suck out as much of the fluid as I possibly can. And I'm just going to use my my fluid extractor here. You guys can use a turkey baster, that'll work if you can get it in there. And just remove as much as you can, that way when we start taking all the hoses off, it doesn't make a huge mess. So now that I removed a few ounces of the power steering fluid from the reservoir, I'm going to go ahead and pop off the covers here and pop off the snorkel here. And right here is the steering shaft for the steering wheel that connects down to the rack. And right here is a bolt that we need to get to. So if you follow the steering shaft down, right here is a bolt that we need to get to, and it's a torque bolt. We need to take that bolt out. We're going to take that bolt out, and then we're going to slide the shaft upwards towards the firewall of the car and slide it off the rack and pinion. And you may have to turn your steering wheel slightly to line up that bolt. You see my setup here. I got a T40 Torx bit on it, and about a foot long extension, and then I'm over here with my ratchet in front of the belts here, and then you can just take the bolt out. Now that the bolt is removed, I'm going to take it off from underneath. So what we're going to do now is rack the vehicle up, and before we do that, we're going to turn the steering wheel back to the straight, turn the wheels back straight. So now I've recentered the steering wheel. Now I'm going to lift the vehicle. Now that you got the vehicle in the air, you can go ahead and remove the front wheels, and if it has lower shields, this one's on my vehicle, it's missing, go ahead and remove the lower shields. So now I got the vehicle in the air, I'm going to go ahead and remove the outer tie rod and off the rack here. So first thing I'm going to do is take the jam nuts. On the driver's side, we're going to take the nut and go clockwise to loosen the bolt, and then on the passenger side we're going to go counterclockwise to loosen the jam nut. Then we're going to loosen the bolt here and take it about 3/4 of the way on, and just leave it on a couple threads at the top on both sides. Okay, now that we got the nut back off the tie rod, I'm just going to use a large hammer like this and strike it a few times on the spindle there, and that'll pop the joint free. Then you can go ahead and remove it. Now that I got it out of the spindle, what I'm going to do is just spin it out, and I'm going to count the number of turns that it's on there. So 1, 2, 3, and until it's all the way off, and then I'll document that number. That way when I go to put it back on, I have I'll be in the ballpark of the line. Okay, now that we got the tie rods off, what we're going to do next is take off the power steering lines. So if you look inside here and follow them up, there's only one little Torx bolt right behind here that we're going to remove. So I'll show you my setup. I got my little cordless ratchet here hooked up to about a 12-inch extension with an E12 female Torx onto the fitting there. So after getting that off, we're just going to wiggle the two hoses out like this, and then I'm going to let them drain into a bucket I got underneath me. Now I'm going to knock the steering shaft off the coupler here, and I'm just going to use my long pry bar like this, put it on the end of it, and then tap it with a hammer on the end of the pry bar, and drive the steering shaft off the rack. Now that we got the rack and pinion steering coupler off, now what I'm going to do, there's a 16 millimeter bolt here and a 16 millimeter bolt here that goes through the rack and pinion, and then on the opposite side you're going to have to back them up with a wrench. So this is a 16 wrench here, and then you're going to put the 16 wrench here, and you're not going to be able to get this bolt out, but for right now we're just going to loosen them up and take the nuts out. Okay, now that we got the two nuts off, on the inside here is this little bracket right here. So we're going to take off the torque bolt here. The bracket's going to come off. So on the passenger side, you're going to take that torque bolt out. It's the E12. I had to use a wrench, and then the bracket will come off and slide back. And that's as far as you need to do that. Also on the driver's side, you'll take the bolt out here, and then the bracket will come out, but it's still going to hit right here on the differential. So we're going to have to drop the differential down. So we need to get this differential out of the car and drop it down. So we need to pop the axles out, and I've already popped this one partially out. I'm going to show you how I've done this so far. So the way I did it was I unbolted the nut from the upper control arm here. I took a large hammer and I hit it on the end right there, and it popped the spindle loose. I also took the mounting bolt for the ABS sensor out and pulled it out. That way when you swing the arm back, it doesn't put tension on the ABS sensor. And then this was zip tied around the spindle, so I just cut the zip tie, and that's a factory zip tie. That's how it's made. So I did that, and then what I did, the pry bar right here, and hit the end of the pry bar and pop the axle out. So it won't come all the way out, but it comes about 90% out. We're going to do the exact same process on the opposite side, and then we're going to unbolt it, and then we should be able to maneuver the differential left or right to finally clear the axle and dip the differential out. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that same process over here on the passenger side, or driver's side. So this is my setup for removing it. I just used my impact gun with a wobble and a 21mm socket, and then I ran it down till the and just threaded the bolt back on a few threads to the nut back on. Now I'm going to take my sledgehammer and pop it free like that. Then you can go ahead and take the you just squeeze it back in a little bit with a pry bar, and then you take the nut off, and then you really lift the pry bar up. So I use my pry bar right here, slid it up here, right on the axle, and then tapped the end of it with a hammer and drove the axle out. And on the driver's side here, I was able to just pull the spindle here and actually get it completely out on the driver's side. So that's where we're at right now. Now I'm gonna get a tranny jack, put it underneath the differential. I'm gonna start removing the bolts for the differential. Now I'm gonna remove all the torque bolts on the drive shaft here. Once the bolts from the drive shaft are removed, I'm gonna remove the bolt that goes through the frame here, nut and bolt. Then I'll remove the bolt here, and then also the bolt here on the front of the differential. And I got like I said, I got a transmission jack underneath the differential. So once I get all those bolts out, then I'll start lowering the differential down and try to get it out of the car. The drive shaft is disconnected. The front bolt, the mount bolt is removed, and I got the back bolt removed and the front one removed. Then I had to use a pry bar right here, and I'm prying it down. And as I'm prying it down, I'm slowly lowering the transmission jack. And I'm going to slowly work it out. Looks like I might have to put the pry bar here between the frame here and pry the differential towards the passenger side of the car a little bit, and then drop the nose down here after I get that cleared. So the differential is just not going to come down because it's hitting the axle right here on the subframe here. So I'm definitely going to have to pop this axle all the way out. So what I did is I went ahead and took the axle nut off and pushed the axle through, and I went ahead and unclipped the clamp right here. That way I got a little bit more slack in the hoses and wires here. And then I pulled the spindle back as far as I can. Now I'm gonna drive it out. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the axle out and and then I'll slide it through the wishbone, you know. So when you guys go to do this, I recommend you take the axle out before you take the differential apart. That'll save you a little bit of time. I tried to flat rate it and try to cheat it and get it out a little quicker, but it didn't work out. I didn't realize how long the inner portion of the shaft is here. As you can see, it's about a foot or so long. I thought it was kind of shorter. So so now that that's out, now we should be able to start lowering the differential down, and so we'll lower the differential down and get the nose over here down, and kind of like this, and then it'll come out like that. Also, before you lower the differential all the way down, you're going to pop off the vent hose here. So go ahead and pop that off, and then you can keep lowering it down and lower the nose down. And you may have somebody help you hold the differential, because once you clear it, it's going to want to flop back down. So now the differential is completely out of the car, and I just got it sitting on the floor over here. And now we can go ahead and finish removing this bracket here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the rack up towards me, push it towards the right of the car, the passenger side of the car, to clear all of this stuff. And then what I'm going to do is get it and kind of nose it out like that. So to clear all this stuff up here, I had to twist it towards the front of the car a little bit like that, and then it cleared this. Then I brought it back an inch or two, and then I twisted it counterclockwise, and now the nose of it came over here. And now I'm just going to keep working it, and now it's over here. Now I'm going to nose it like this and just pull it out of the car. So now I'm just going to match up my my two parts here. This is from a local part supplier here that they remanufactured this for us, or they remanufactured rack and pinions. We got them from, but I will leave a link in the description of the video for a part that I think is quality for you guys. You probably won't be able to. He doesn't really ship for these. He's just a local guy, but But I'll do some research and find a good quality one, and I'll link it up in the description of the video. That way, if you guys need to pick it up, you can get that. So now after I matched it up and it looks like to be the right one, I'm going to go ahead and reinstall it. So the right side of it will go in first. Mine didn't come with this plastic guide right here. So I'm going to pop this off and transfer it over. And as you can see, this little mark or notch right here lines up with this little notch. So I'll make sure it lines back up with the notch on this rack and pinion. So that way when we put our steering coupler back on, it'll be on the exact same position. Also, if you guys wanted to, now would be a good time to do some of the cleaning on this, but I'm not going to do that. The reason why is after I'm done with this, I'm going to take it and have the engine detailed. So we're going to pressure wash everything. So it's futile for me to clean everything here right now when we're just going to do it again. I may clean up a few of the parts where the mounting brackets are, so when they bolt, there's no oil and stuff in between it. But other than that, that's all the cleaning I'm going to do at this point. So I stabbed it all the way through in the right side, nosed the corner in over here, and then pulled it through, and then got the left side to go up. Now I'm going to slide it over and then rotate the nose cone up into place. Okay, so I got the new rack and pinion back into place. I also put the bracket and the torque bolt here and the 16mm bolt, and on the other side I got the nut already started here. And then I did the same thing for the little bracket here, the bolt through with the nut on the other side, and the bolt started. And also on the threads, I put a little bit of blue thread locker, like this. So it's like a little bit of, it's like glue that you put on the threads, and it helps prevent the bolts from vibrating loose and backing back out. So after you get the thread locker on there, you can go ahead and tighten all these up. You tighten this one down, and go ahead and tighten the rack and pinion bolt back down. So the bolts that go through the rack and pinion, you're going to torque those down at 45 foot-pounds. I couldn't locate the torque for the little torque bolts here, so just snug those up nice and. Okay, now that the rack and pinion's mounted and bolted back up, I'm going to go ahead and install the coupler up here. And the way I'm going to do that is, on the front side here, I'm going to reach my arm up here like this and grab the steering coupler, and I'm going to stick it on the shaft at the. See if you can see it up there. So I'm going to stick it on the shaft up there, and what I'm going to do to line it up is I'm going to look around on the opposite side over here, and you can see it, and you can see the little plastic guide. So I'm going to line everything up, and with my hand reaching over the top, see if you can see it up here. So my hand's reaching over the top, I'll slide the steering shaft over the gearbox here, or the rack and pinion, and slide it back over the splines. And then if you want to, you can go ahead and start the bolt and tighten it now, or you can wait till back down on the ground. To get the steering shaft back on, I ended up just popping the cover off just to make a little more room. And it wouldn't go on, it just wouldn't slide on. It was a little tight fitting, so what I did was I lined it up from underneath. So what I did was I lined up the coupler from underneath, and then actually, and I also lined it up from here, and I kind of held my hand down here like this and lined it up straight. Then I put my pry bar right here, and I put it right on the tip of the coupler, and I tapped it with a hammer on the top of the pry bar, and that drove the steering shaft coupler onto the rack and pinion. At the same time as I was tapping it, I was actually holding it down here with my one hand, kind of holding everything in alignment, and I just had to rest it. And once I got it started, I just rested on the thing. But you can have somebody hold it for you and tap it, and just lightly tap it, and it'll go on. Now that it's on, I got the bolt through it right here, and I got a little bit of the blue Permatex thread locker. I put a little bit of that on the bolt. Now I'm going to torque that bolt down to it's 23 foot-pounds is the spec. And this is my setup. I got my torque socket on it with a long extension in my torque wrench, and there's just enough room to swing it and torque it down right here. All right, now that the steering coupler is reinstalled, what I'm going to do next is change out my O-rings for my hoses here. Okay, now that I changed the O-rings, I went ahead and installed the two power steering hoses and tighten it down. You can see my little setup here, a little extension with a little, this is a 3/8 drive ratchet. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and put my differential back up on the transmission jack, lift it up back into position. I'm going to stab the nose, so it's going to go up at an angle like this. and then rotate, and then the tail will rotate upwards. So you'll kind of just angle it in there, and as you angle it, you'll just kind of rotate that tail up, and you'll have to clear the brackets. You'll have to maneuver it and twist it and get it to go up inside here. And then once you get it in there and get that turn that corner, then you're on the home stretch. Then you'll just line up the bolts, do the tabs here and here and over here on the corner. For the most part, I lifted this differential up and put it in position by hand. I didn't really use the transmission jack too much. It's just kind of there to jack it up under and rest your arms when your arms get tired. But now that I got it up in there, I'm going to go ahead and start the main bolts here first. Before I put these bolts in and torque them down, I put a little bit of that blue or thread locker. So you can torque this bolt here, nut and bolt through at 40 foot-pounds. The bolt here is at 45 foot-pounds and 45 foot-pounds. Once you get those all torqued on, make sure you put the vent line back on. Make sure that's plugged on. And at this time, if you feel like you've lost gear oil out of your out of your differential, you can take this little plug out and check the level right there. After that's done, then what we can do is go ahead and line up our axle here and put the blue thread locker on the bolts here and start all 6 of the bolts and tighten those up. Okay, after getting the drive shaft hooked back up, the front carrier bolt, the rear carrier bolt, the side one, all torqued down. Now what we're going to do is install the passenger side axle. So we'll just stab it through. We'll line it up here with one hand, kind of like this, and guide it through with through the spindle and pop it into the seat. So I'm over here in the front now, and I'm looking in at it, and I was able to just kind of line it up with my hand like this and shove it in, and it popped it fully seated and popped in. So now what we're going to do is just flare the spindle back and kind of twist the axle at an angle and poke it through the bearing here. So as you can see, I got it poked back through, and I just started the axle nut on this side. Now what I'm going to do is swing the spindle here up into position, and I'll put a pry bar here on top of the control arm. So I'll put a pry bar like this on top of the control arm, and I'll line up the spindle with the ball joint, and then I'll pry the lower control arm back into place and then start the nut. Okay, now that the upper ball joint is stabbed back through the spindle here, we went ahead and started the nut like I said. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the axle nut here to 196 foot-pounds. Then after that, I'm going to torque the ball joint here. Okay, now that the ball joint is torqued down, the axle nut is torqued down, now I'm going to go ahead and snap on all these little clips and everything that we took off. Put on the new zip ties here and here. Then I'll go ahead and put the wheel speed sensor back in here and tighten that back down. Now you can go ahead and screw on your outer tie rod to your inner tie rod here. And I screwed mine off about approximately 20 times, so I'm gonna put this one back on in the same ballpark. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, and I'll keep going in until I get to about 20, and then I'll stab it through and start the nut. I believe it went through the bottom like that. Yeah. And then I'll start the bolt and torque it down. Now that the tie rod's back on, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten up the jam nut here. So let's just give that a little snug. So stab the axle on this side. I already got it kind of in there. I'll just line it up like this with one hand like this. With my other hand, I'll use the spindle here and I'll just push it in. And at the same time, making sure that this stays lined up and guided in. So it went in pretty easily. It just, like I said, stabbed it in. Now that I pried the upper control arm down and started the bolt, I'm going to torque the ball joint there, and then I'll put on all the little plastic ties that we cut the zip tie off and everything. I'll put that back on and re-secure it. Then I'll put the ABS sensor back in, re-secure that. Then I'll screw on my outer tie rod onto here, approximately 20 threads. It was on this side also, and then stick it through the spindle here and tighten. All right, now that the axle's stabbed, the tie rod's reconnected, the jam nut's tight again, the ABS sensor is reinstalled, all the clamps are gone. You just go over it, make sure the zip ties are there, everything's there. Once you're satisfied with that, you can go ahead and put, if yours had a lower shield, mine did not, mine was missing. I'm actually you might want to leave it off right now, and after you're done, steam clean or wash everything and then put the shield back on. So now we can put the wheels back on the car and lower the vehicle back down. And just one last, I always like raise it back up and just kind of walk around and double check everything and make sure everything's touched is back on. I literally like to put my hands on the nuts and bolts that I took off and just kind of walk through it in my own mind and go through it and double check it. And then if you think everything's good, then you can go ahead and put the wheels back on, lower it back down. Now you can go ahead and fill up the reservoir with Mercedes-Benz approved power steering fluid. I like to fill it all the way up to the top like that. I'll fire it off real quick, and it's probably going to drop really fast. Then I'll shut it off real quick and then kind of top it back off until it measures on the dipstick on the cap here. Then I'll start the car again and let it run. I'll let it idle for a minute or so, and then maybe slowly starts turning the steering wheel left to right from lock to lock. And once I do that a few times, I'll let it idle for a while. And also, if you took the air cleaner off, go ahead and put the air cleaner back on. And that'll complete the job of replacing the rack and pinion on a 2008 Mercedes Ml350. I'm Brian Essa from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching my videos. Encourage you to subscribe. Invite you to head over to the howtoautomotive.com website, and also to remind you that I will be linking up all the parts and tools that I use in this video. That way, if you need to get the power steering fluid, the rack and pinion, whatever you need, it'll be there for you. Thank you again for watching.